NASCAR fans, I'm just going to say it straight. Something big is happening behind garage doors right now, and if these rumors are true, the entire Cup Series driver market for 2026 could be about to explode. We're talking about a possible team shutdown. We're talking about Brad Keselowski potentially making an $80 million power move. And we're talking about a former Daytona 500 champion possibly fighting for his NASCAR future, while one of the biggest names this sport has ever seen, Kyle Busch, might be staring down the toughest reality of his career. And here's the thing. At first glance, this sounds like just another silly garage rumor. But the more you connect the dots, the more this starts looking less like gossip and more like the beginning of a massive shakeup that could change the Cup Series landscape for years. So stick with me because this one gets wild. And hey, real quick, if you are a true NASCAR fan like me, go ahead and drop a like and subscribe to the channel. NASCAR Nation news is just getting started. We are pushing for our next subscriber milestone, and it's all about wheel talk from fans who live this sport every week. All right, let's get into it. So here's what's got the garage talking right now. According to industry chatter coming out of the Rubbin' Is Racing podcast, Hyak Motorsports, the current home of Ricky Stenhouse Jr., could be preparing to shut down operations after this season. Yeah, let that sink in. One full-time charter team potentially gone. And if you've been paying attention to the charter drama lately, you already know this is bigger than just one team disappearing. Because right now, charters aren't just race entries. They're gold, they're assets, they're power. And thanks to all the legal chaos, lawsuits, and ownership battles happening around NASCAR, especially with Michael Jordan's charter fight, those charters have reportedly skyrocketed in value, some people saying close to $100 million. That's not racing money, that's empire building money. And suddenly, this Hyak rumor starts making a lot more sense. Because if a smaller team can't compete financially, and if sponsors aren't showing up, and if results aren't there, eventually somebody with deep pockets comes knocking. And right now, that somebody might be Brad Keselowski. Now stick with me here, because this is where things get really interesting. Not long ago, Brad Keselowski openly talked about what it would take for RFK Racing to secure another charter. And his number? Somewhere between $40 million and $80 million. Think about that. Brad wasn't joking. He wasn't throwing out fantasy numbers. He was basically telling the industry, if the right opportunity comes, we're ready. And here's why that matters. RFK already lost its third charter for the upcoming season. That's a problem, because if you're trying to grow, if you're trying to build championship depth, if you're trying to become the next powerhouse, you need that third car, you need that third seat, you need that third shot at the playoffs. And if Hyak really is vulnerable, if that charter really becomes available, RFK might not just buy a charter, they might buy the whole operation. And honestly, from a business standpoint, it's almost too perfect. Hyak has struggled, only a couple top 10s, minimal sponsor buzz, very little momentum. And in today's NASCAR, that makes you vulnerable, very vulnerable. But now we get to the human side of this story. What happens to Ricky Stenhouse Jr., P5? And I'm being serious here. This could be one of the biggest career crossroads we've seen in a while. This is a guy who won the Daytona 500 in 2023, a guy who's proven he can win, a guy who can bring aggression, personality, and headlines. But here's the thing, winning at Daytona gets you remembered. Consistency gets you hired. And right now, Ricky's future feels completely up in the air. If Hyak disappears, where does he go? Some insiders are saying the most logical landing spot could be replacing Michael McDowell if that seat opens up. Others are saying maybe, just maybe, Richard Childress Racing. And that's where this story goes from interesting to absolutely explosive. Because if Ricky Stenhouse ends up in the conversation for an RCA seat, that means one thing, people inside the garage are asking serious questions about Kyle Busch. Now I know some of you are going to get fired up here, but I'm just going to say it straight. Kyle Busch doesn't look like the Kyle Busch we used to fear. And that's hard to say, because we're talking about one of the most naturally gifted drivers this sport has ever seen. A champion, a superstar, a guy who used to own race weekends. But lately, something feels off, and the Texas race may have exposed it. You had the aggressive moves, the radio frustration, the near meltdown, the run-ins with other drivers, and suddenly people aren't talking about Kyle fighting for wins. They're talking about Kyle fighting for 21st place. Read that again. 21st. That's not where Kyle Busch built his legacy. That's not where champions live. And now there's even talk of potential fines, questions about chemistry, questions about attitude, questions about whether RCR is still the right fit. And NASCAR fans, that's a conversation nobody thought we'd be having a few years ago, because once the garage starts asking who still wants Kyle Busch, that's when things get serious, very serious. And this is why this entire story matters. This isn't just about one team. This isn't just about one charter. This isn't just about one charter. This could trigger a domino effect across the entire Cup Series. If Hyak shuts down, RFK could expand. If RFK expands, a new driver gets a shot. If Stenhouse moves, another seat opens. If RCR starts questioning Kyle Busch, then suddenly one of the biggest names in NASCAR becomes part of the hottest driver market in years. And here's the scary part. We're not even in silly season yet, but it already feels like the chess pieces are moving quietly, strategically, and maybe permanently. So now I want to hear from you. And be honest, if Hyak Motorsports shuts down, should Brad Keselowski and RFK make the $80 million move? And bigger than that, if Richard Childress had to choose tomorrow, are you sticking with Kyle Busch or taking a gamble on Ricky Stenhouse Jr.? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this one is going to divide NASCAR fans. And if you love real NASCAR talk, make sure you like, subscribe, and join us right here on NASCAR Nation News. I'll see you in the next one.